All right, hey everybody, how you doing? Next couple of videos, try to link them all together because they're all pretty much on the same subject matter. I guess I'll just tell you up front. I don't think the Egyptians are the Egyptians. See, there are three Egyptian dynasties. When you see like all the bloodlines that come out of Africa, for the main part, it's mostly the Mongol. Okay, the Chinese are Mongolians. You know, they're Sinites. You're not getting around that. The more they push Amorites, it's just, and the Egyptians, they come from Cham, who is a Mongol, not a Negro. So the more we get into this, the deeper it gets. Now, the third dynasty is, I believe, where we get all the images from. So, you know, it just seems that way. So, what I'm going to do is just I'm going to show you these videos. You take it for what you will. Now, remember, there's a comment that was recently put up, said that I'm leading people astray. Now, I'm going to explain this very slowly. You know about the Bible because of the people that enslave you. So you lead your ass wherever you want. I'm going to keep looking up what keeps popping in front of me.
You know, when we talk about history, we think in terms of Columbus discovering America. If you're like I was when I was a little kid growing up, why, Columbus discovered America, and we have a holiday on October the 12th every year that we celebrate the discovery of America. One day, I was traveling with my wife in Illinois, and she looked over at me and she said, well, would you like to visit one of the pyramids here in Illinois? And I said, pyramids? And she said, yes, there's about 7 or 8 of them here, and not far from here, just a few miles, is one of those big pyramids. And then I said, well, who built it? And she said, well, nobody seems to know. And I said, well, how big is it? And she said, well, it's several hundred feet high.
Okay, so when there is a feat, it's a bowl of ice cream, chocolate on top. When there is a feat of anything that the black person has done, or a brown person, or a Negro, or however you want to view it, anytime a feat is completed by them, it is now unknown to the world who did this structure, who did that structure. Now, just pay very close attention to what's being said here, because, you know, a lot's being revealed. All right, and you can always go to any of these search engines and you type in pyramids. You can even misspell it. Oh man. And you can see even maps that display everywhere where pyramids are in North America. I can't see big maps, but even maps exist showing you pyramids in North America.
It's as big as the Great Pyramid of Egypt. And I was amazed. I'd never heard of such a thing. I said, here in Illinois, there's a pyramid? And she said, yes, not just one, but
not just one, but 7 or 8 in Illinois.
And I said, yeah, I got to see this. And so we drove off the main highway, and we drove a little while, and pretty soon here out in the middle of the flat lands of Illinois, rising on the horizon was this big hill. We drove over to the big hill. It was covered by brush and trees, and we went into the park. It's a state park. And paid our fee, and we walked in. I stood at the bottom of it, and I looked at this, and I said, why is it that I have been educated in America, went to the public school system, and here is a monument 400 feet high, sitting in the middle of a cornfield, covering about 15 or 20 acres of ground, a humongous mound of earth, and I never heard about it. And I'm 42 years old. Never heard about it.
Oh, it's because your ancestors, they didn't want you to regret enslaving these people that could make these great feats. And so they wanted to keep this history hidden from you. And so they've always given you the public education that these are just fucking dumb Africans that throw spears. Not that they are these great civil engineers and people that change the face of the continent that we're on now.
Well, it's not the only thing that I haven't heard about. It's not the only thing that you probably hadn't heard about. But have you ever heard about Egyptian hieroglyphics here in America? Have you heard about any monuments, writings, or coins found here in America that predate Columbus? How about Irish Ogham writing?
No, you're not going to hear too much about those things, because if you hear all those things exist here, it proves that the biblical tales happen here in America. Now, if you prove all that stuff that happened here in America, then you have a big problem with tourist attractions on the other side of the world. Then that proves that these people that call themselves the greatest colonial nations on the earth, they stole everything. And, you know, all these sculptures in fucking Rome have been stolen from every other land that produced them. And it's really just the theft of all the goods of Aboriginal peoples, just like it says on Dumb Diver. It says take all their shit, even their peoples, and put them in perpetual slavery. Take all their goods.
Phoenician coins, Roman pottery, Noah's burial mounds found in West Virginia, Georgia, Michigan, Arkansas, Illinois, Iowa, New Mexico, Oklahoma, and Colorado, just to name a few places where these sites and these discoveries have been found. And then ask yourself, what did you hear when you went to school, when you went to college? Maybe you're an archaeologist or an anthropologist. Did you ever hear about America BC? Well, we've heard about the Indians, and we ascribe these monuments and these strange phenomena to these Indians who deny them. And when you ask the Indians...
Now, right now, no, look, I can't speak for another person. But right now, he's talking about one group of Indians. In a minute, he's going to say, then we asked the Indians, okay? And he's not saying that we continue the conversation with this group of Indians that already deny that they built these. He's going to talk about a second group of Indians, but he's not going to tell you he's talking about a second group of Indians. Now, just be aware that this is coming. Now, he already asked the Mongols, did you build this shit? And they said no.
To these Indians who deny them. And when you ask the Indians of Illinois, did you or your people or any history in the past build these pyramids out here? And they'll tell you, nope, we didn't build them. Do you know who did? And they'll say, nope, we don't know who did. We don't know who built them. We didn't, but there they are. And they are totally ignored in the literature. I mean ignored, like they never existed. It's not the first time I've ever seen this kind of hiding the truth.
Now, when it comes to hiding the truth, I've already talked about Afro-Asian, and this is why I base the shirts around this term, because this is what we are. We are Afro-Asians, and we are marginalized. They hide our existence. Now listen again.
Existed. It's not, but there they are. And they are totally ignored in the literature. I mean ignored, like they never existed. It's not the first time I've ever seen this kind of hiding the truth. We see it in politics, we see it in economics, we see it in medicine. And the truth is, we find it in science also. For instance, in March of 14...
Now, in politics, we dealt with the senator that said that the blacks are aboriginals, and he argued with the other guy that was with him if they were Indians, and he corrects him and say, no, they're not Indians, they're natives. Like there's some kind of difference. Now, what else did he say?
The truth. We see it in politics, we see it in economics, we see it
in economics. Now, we already argue about the glass ceiling, right? You can only go up so high, right? Even if you're conformed. If you're not conformed, you can't even get in the doorway.
In medicine.
In medicine. Now, we can clearly see it in the Tuskegee experiment. Excuse my pronunciation of that, where they infected people of Afro descent with syphilis when there was already a cure years before. Then the experiments were denied as they were still ongoing. Now we see with vaccines, and with autism, that it attacks the Afro male at a higher rate than any of these other children. So just like this guy says, oh, I've seen hiding the truth in each of these categories, we can express each of these categories in our own lives based upon the evils of this system.
And the truth is, we find it in science also. For instance, in March of 1493, the Catholic Church was presented with an unforeseen problem. Christopher Columbus had just landed in Lisbon after an 8-month voyage that was to have taken him to the Indies, but instead of going to the Indies, it had led him to discover a new world. And the difficulty now confronting the prelates of the Catholic Church was that he had returned with passengers, American Indians, who had all of the appearance of being human beings. But how could their existence be accounted for? The biblical account of creation...
No, I'm going to stop there. No, he said he returned... I spilled a little bit on myself, sorry about that. He said he returned to England with American Indians. He didn't return with Mongols. And even in this book, America Being, wherever it is over there, America Being the latest, greatest discovery of the New World, Mongols isn't what he takes back. He takes black Indians. He takes Negroes back. Now, he already said, we went to the Indians and said, hey, did you do this? And they go, no. Now he starts saying the same freaking term, no distinction between the two different sets of Indians. Now he said, well, Columbus says he had to tell everybody they were human, because here's the problem. The Bible only says there was three major continents. This is what his argument is. So just pay attention, because when he makes these changes, he don't express that he's making these changes, nor does he express why. He'll state he understands that the truth is being hidden, but when it comes to his turn to tell the truth, he's still hiding it just like everybody else.
But how could their existence be accounted for? The biblical account of creation described 3 continents, each occupied by the seed of 3 sons, the 3 sons of Noah who survived the flood, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Columbus seems already to have been aware of the impending theological problem, because in a letter dated February 15th, 1493, written at the Canary Islands, he assured King Ferdinand that the people that he found were no monsters, but on the contrary were very well formed, neither were they Negroes, and when he put ashore...
Now, first he says, these people are very well formed. Now, they done told the fucking world they came here and found savages and nothing but savages. Now, Columbus goes and argues these people aren't monsters. Now, they say monsters because these people expect that there's nobody going to be here. But they find all sorts of people here. So this is their argument how they get here. Because there's no writings of how they got here.
In Lisbon, that the people that he found were no monsters, but on the contrary were very well formed. Neither were they Negroes. And when he put ashore in Lisbon on March 6th, his journal records, many people...
Now, as I listen to this, my mind poses its own question. Why in the fuck would he say, neither are they Negroes? Now, that is the kicker right there. See, if I take some fucking Welsh people and stick them in front of you, and I say, these aren't German, you see what I mean? I got to get somebody that looked like German to bring up the point. They're not German. If I bring some French people here and sit them in front and say, these aren't German, they still look Germanesque to be able to say they're in that ballpark, but I gotta warn you, they're not German. And this is an interesting thing because Columbus has to tell everybody they're not Negroes. So obviously they have traits like Negroes.
And when he put ashore in Lisbon on March 6th, his journal records, many people came to see the Indians, and it was a great marvel. As the second and third and later voyages produced ever-mounting evidence of large numbers of man-like creatures inhabiting the Americas, a cold wind of skepticism began to blow through the monasteries to ruffle the equanimity of those who so boldly preached the absolute truth of Genesis.
Man-like creatures.
And for a time, Rome disregarded the matter, as Pope Alexander VI was otherwise engaged, save only when he found time to draw a line of demarcation between the Spanish and the Portuguese portions of the New World. But in 1512, a new pope summoned the Fifth Lateran Council and issued an official declaration certifying that American Indians are true descendants of Adam and Eve, and hence they are human beings. The failure of the Bible...
Now, here's something very interesting. They had to get together and say that these people who look Negro-esque but are not Negro, whom we cannot figure out who they are, where they come from, the only logical conclusion that we can come to is these are the descendants of Adam and Eve. Now, I want you to pause the video. I want you to think about that for a minute. Now, the flood was supposed to wipe out everybody. That's what the Bible says, right? But the children of Cain, the Chinook, they live in Canada. Look, God ain't going to say, listen, the Creator ain't going to say, I'm going to put a curse on you till Judgment Day and then kill them off in the next segment, that they ain't going to live long enough for the curse to matter. You know? So, again, keep all, things that you've read, in mind, when things pop up here,
To account for their continent was made good by the inference that American Indians are the descendants of Babylonians expelled from the Old World on account of sins of their ancestors. Now, backed by this new...
Now, that's important, right? Listen again. Now, listen. Hey. There's no guarantee any of these things that are being said are correct. There's something that came up that really messes with someone. In the 1800s, writers expressed the truth to a great degree. They're piecing things together from the 1800s. So it's not like they've got some great lead. They just got, a couple centuries head start. But most of their people have forgotten about this mental race about where everybody came from. You gotta understand, just because the Bible was handed to us don't mean we got to accept it. Now, the laws, the statutes, the commandments, the Creator, yes. The prophecies, yes. But a lot of these names, you can't find them historically. And that's based on who gave us the Bible. Now, these writings were seized from libraries when those places were under siege by colonists during colonization, during different periods of barbaric times throughout the ages. It's a mouthful.
Sins of their ancestors. Now, backed by this new authority, it was now safe for speculative churchmen to ponder the route from the Garden of Eden to America.
So, in all reality, all any of these writers are doing is speculating. The only time, let me reinstate this, the only time that they're correct is when they dig something out of the ground. If they don't have the actual historic evidence to prove it, then it's just conjecture. And that's really important when we're sitting there saying, I base my soul on this. Well, who the fuck discovered what you basing your soul on? Everybody's sitting there preaching Jesus, and there's literally no proof this cat existed. And the more you show people, the more violent they get. Never once do they say, I'm going to get some literature to back up what I'm saying. Because they already know that shit don't exist. The only way Jesus exists in people's mind is by the sword. You got to take the sword to a motherfucker to make him believe in Jesus. Believe in Jesus or I'm going to cut your motherfucking ass up.
After considering the possibilities that Noah's Ark might have added an American port of call to her scheduled sailing plan, or that angels might have transported people across the ocean, holding them by the hair of the head, like to the prophet Habakkuk, a Spanish thinker, Jose de Acosta, dismissed both propositions in favor of transportation by shipwreck and accidental tempest of the weather. Now, the inquiry was now taken up by others, and by the 17th century, both Protestant and Catholic churchmen were agreed that Asia must have been the original homeland of the American Indian forefathers because only the rude Tartars, above all nations on earth, resemble the inhabitants of America in respect of their gross ignorance of letters and of the arts, their idolatry, and above all, their incivility. Alas, for Pocahontas, there was no Fenimore Cooper on hand to defend the Six Nations, no Deerslayer to win hearts or minds for the dwellers in the wilderness, their idolatry, and above all, their incivility. Alas, for Protestant and Catholic churchmen were agreed that Asia must have been the original homeland of the American Indian forefathers because only the rude Tartars, above all nations on earth, resemble the inhabitants of America in respect of their gross ignorance of letters.
Gross ignorance of letters. Gross ignorance of letters. Okay, do you understand what that means? That means Letters don't mean a fucking thing to you. Gross ignorance of letters. It's as if letters, alphabetical letters, to you is grotesque. Okay? So basically, it's like this. When they sit you down in a corner, when they're starting to understand you, when they arrive here in 16, 17, 18. So they're trying to understand how to communicate with you on paper. Okay, and what they're understanding is you don't have a written language per se that they're used to because you don't spell with letters. You spell with sticks, scratches, or lines, or circles, or things of that nature. Now, how do I prove this? Okay, when you compare the Hebrew language, the Japanese language, compare that to English, compare that to French. French and English use letters. Japanese, Asian, and Hebrew, right? This is what we believe we are, right? Hebrew. They use what? Sticks and bars. When you look at the Mayan, when you look at the Aztec, they use sticks and dots. They used pictures. When you look at the Egyptians, they used pictures. When you look at the the Sumerians, right, were the Egyptians, which I'm gonna try to prove that the Egyptians, the black Egyptians, are not truly the black Egyptians. They're really the Sumerians, whom are Adam's children. When they got here, they found Adam's children living in pyramids, and they took them down. They found Mongols, and they found Hebrews, they found bearded people. They found it all. Now, he says something about the fucking Tartars, right? Now let's keep that in mind.
Inhabitants of America in respect of their gross ignorance of letters and of the arts, their idolatry, and above all, their incivility. Alas, for Pocahontas, there was no Fenimore Cooper on hand to defend the Six Nations, no Deerslayer yet to win hearts or minds for the dwellers in the wilderness. One dissident, Cotton Mather in Boston, in the course of a long series of extraordinary letters to the Royal Society of London, drew attention to the existence in Connecticut of a tribe of Indians which practiced circumcision, thereby showing he thought that the American Indians should be considered as the lost tribes of Israel. Voltaire, on the other hand, considered that the American Indians had arisen de novo in America by whatever mechanism had similarly caused human beings to appear upon the face of the earth in the other continents.
Okay, so now we have a problem. Now, the people that are here actually own land, whether it be the criminals that were sent over here, whether it be the mercenaries that were sent over here, whether it be the soldiers that were sent over here, whether it be the pilgrims that were sent over here, or whether it be the families afterwards. They're not all going to the same point. Yes, at one point Ellis Island was the point that they all started to go to, but they're all arriving in America at different points to a great degree. And when they branch off from whatever point they arrive at the most, because look, the French have the South and the French have part of the North. The British have the 13 colonies. Denmark has part of New York. So understand what's really going on. Each of these people groups that go to these different areas, they all experience different Indians. Now, when you get writers and researchers coming over here while the wars are calmed down, now these guys go out and try to communicate with some of the different Indian groups. And then this is how you build up, break the barrier of language between the two groups. And this is how we have a lot of this information. But you got to understand, this is how things were done at that time. So the Indians that they met in one part of Florida aren't necessarily biologically related to the Indians in another part of Florida.
By 1811, such scientists as Humboldt recognized the similarities between some American tribes and those of the Mongol race, and he postulated that the American Indians are descended from a mingling of ancient Americans and later in-wanderers from Asia.
So, in-wanderers. So, we've all been told that there are Indian groups that migrated through the Bering Strait. Now, what he's saying is the Mongol Indians didn't come through the Bering Strait, but the Indians that did come through the Bering Strait mingled with the Mongol Indians. Now, you can clearly see this matches the Bible. The Mongols are Canaan, and the bearded Hebrews mingled with them, as the Bible tells us that they did.
Later still, most of the anthropologists came to agree that all American Indians are descended from ancestors that entered the Americas by way of the Bering Strait, and that no European came to America before Leif Erikson or Columbus.
Okay, so the first European is Leif Erikson, and the second European is Columbus. But Columbus is credited with founding America, even though Leif Erikson came prior to Columbus.
Now, in recent years, one lone voice...
Excuse me, before Columbus.
...has protested this kind of oversimplification, that of Harold Sterling Gladwin. And in his various writings, Gladwin has repeatedly drawn attention to cultural features and material objects, particularly pottery, that show that American tribes must have had relatively recent contacts with the Old World of Europe and the Middle East, especially with the Mediterranean and with the Orient.
Okay, now this is really, really, really important. Now, hopefully the next videos go into this, but we'll see how that goes. Okay, close contact with the Mediterranean. So the Greeks are Mediterranean, Rome is Mediterranean. I need you to keep that in mind. It's very important.
The nature of the various art styles to which he drew attention is such as to point to direct voyages between the Old World and the Americas as late as classical times about 2,000 years ago.
Okay, let's stop there. You said somewhere around here.
Declaration certifying that American Indians are true descendants of Adam and Eve, and hence they are human beings. The failure of the Bible to account for them and to account for their continent was made good by the inference that American Indians are the descendants of Babylonians expelled from the Old World on account of sins of their ancestors.
Okay, I was trying to find a particular part. I accidentally clicked on it anyway. I'll listen to it again with you.
People across the ocean, holding them by the hair of the head, like to the prophet Habakkuk, a Spanish thinker, Jose de Acosta, dismissed both propositions in favor of transportation by shipwreck and accidental tempest of the weather. Now, the inquiry was now taken up by others, and by the 17th century, both Protestant and Catholic churchmen were agreed that Asia must have been the original homeland of the American Indian forefathers, because only the rude Tartars, above all nations on earth, resemble the inhabitants of America in respect of their gross ignorance of letters and of the arts, their idolatry, and above all, their incivility. Alas.
Okay, so he makes this statement that they must be from Asia, and they must be related to the Tartars. Now, not to annoy anyone, we should listen to that one more time.
Tempest of the weather. Now, the inquiry was now taken up by others, and by the 17th century, both Protestant and Catholic churchmen were agreed that Asia must have been the original homeland of the American Indian forefathers because only the rude Tartars, above all nations on earth, resemble the inhabitants of America in respect of their gross ignorance of letters and of the arts, their idolatry, and above all, their incivility. Alas, for Pocahontas, there was no...
All right, so the Tartars out of Asia. And there's something that I came across when I was looking at America being the latest, greatest. So I clicked on this. Actually, I read it in my book, and then I matched the pages. Now, it starts on page 38. Now, you can see right here, 38 is the page, and up here, it's on the computer, 56. That has to deal with the pages in the beginning of the book and the intro. All right, so from right here all the way down to about right there. All right, so and what's said here is pretty interesting. And so now I've brought this up all video. All these things are fucking allegations about whom we are. Another allegation for the planting of America. Who peopled America? Because what they're saying is whoever peopled America fucked all the Indians. I don't care what you say. That's what they're saying. And they were here before us. And we can read their writing. Another allegation. And at this time, they didn't expect people with black faces and beards and afro hair to be able to read what they wrote years later. Another allegation for the planting of America. Farmer has seed, men have seed. They plant their seed into women. Women are fertile if they can produce. Soil is fertile if they can produce. Both whose sides are washed on the east and west by the South and Atlantic Ocean. May be thus probably made out, the Atlantic rose over the almost fathomless waters, 3,000 leagues of ground. The South Sea, not much left, which well may be, being indeed but one continued sea, encompassing till meeting there the universal ball. Okay, this is them pushing the earth is round bullshit. Whence springs a more likelihood that America might be planted from the southern parts, from the Straits of Magellan and Limear. These are places in South America. It says Peter Fernandez de Queer relates that he and a commander, Lodwick Pasle Torres, saw a part of the South Country, and it is innumerable, and in it innumerable inhabitants. Whites, there were whites there. Blacks, there were blacks in the inhabitants. Swallows, who the hell knows what that is? And longs, I hope they were wearing pants. And black, they said black again. And curled, and woolly, and yellow hair. Okay, so swallows, either that has to do with complexion, but when he goes with long, black, curled, woolly, and yellow hair, that's the separation of two descriptions. They know no walls or fortresses for defense, laws or kings, but are divided into tribes. They use indeed bows, arrows, clubs, and a kind of spear. Their houses are covered with palm tree leaves. Their household stuff consists only of a new of a few earthen pots and such trinkets. Yet they have some little skill in weaving, and they gonked, though they gonked, pride themselves in necklace and bracelets made of mother pearl. But therefore, excuse me, but there for their but these for their complexion and constitution of body, customs, manners, are rather derived from the Americans than they from them, and therefore we must seek for their original from the north, from which are but two ways: one from the island and Greenland, which Grotos endeavored to prove, but contradicted; the other out of Tartary. Now, they're saying that the people of America either came from what? Islands and Greenland, but Grotos didn't prove that. He contradicted it. Trying to prove they came from the islands and from Greenland, he contradicted it. It went the opposite way. The opposite way, the other, is out of Tartary. Now, why is that important? Because these people already assume that.
And of the art that Asia must have been the original homeland of the American Indian forefathers, because only the rude Tartars, above all nations on earth, resemble the inhabitants of America in respect of their gross ignorance of letters and of the arts, their idolatry, and above all, their incivility. Alas, for Pocahontas, there was no Fenimore Cooper on hand to defend the Six Nations, no Deerslayer yet to win hearts or minds for the dwellers tempest of the weather. Now the inquiry was now taken up by others, and by the 17th century, both Protestant and Catholic churchmen were agreed that Asia must have been the original homeland of the American Indian forefathers, because only the rude Tartars, above all nations on earth, resemble the inhabitants of America in respect of their gross ignorance of letters and of the arts, their idolatry, and above all, their incivility. Alas, for Pocahontas, there was no Fenimore Cooper on hand to defend the Six Nations, no Deerslayer yet to win hearts or minds for the dwellers in the wilderness. One dissident, Cotton Mather in Boston, in the course of a long series of extraordinary letters to the Royal Society of London, drew attention to the existence in Connecticut of a tribe of Indians which practiced circumcision, thereby showing he thought that the American Indians should be both Protestant and Catholic churchmen were agreed that Asia must have been the original homeland of the American Indian forefathers, because only the rude Tartars, above all nations on earth, resemble the inhabitants of America in respect of their gross ignorance of letters and of the arts, their idolatry.
Okay, so when you actually look at this image, it's closer to all these other. Now, I don't know if he's saying rude Tartars. I don't know if he's saying Ru. You can see when I type in Ru, R-U-E, you're not getting really anything. You can see from your own opinion that we don't really look like these people. And they didn't find these people here. But that could just be, dealing with Google or dealing with any of these search engines, because we cannot forget that our populations have been marginalized as a result of social conflict called colonization. All our shit's been took. Our pockets have been looted. So when we go back to this, it says that there's no way that we're from the north. There's no way we're from Greenland. That we're most likely out of the Tartary. which doesn't mean we're Tartars, just means that we're out of the Tartary, the land that the Tartars grew up on, which certainly was the first nursery from whence the Americans were transplanted. So that's as if saying that we grew up on the land of Tartars and then the Tartars came along and took the land from us. All right, well, if we had the land and we controlled that land, then why aren't we in the land of Tartary now? See what I'm saying? So this is what they're saying is this was taken from us. Now, whether they have writings to prove that this was taken from us is a whole different story. But they express that the American Indian, whom they always argue is the native, right, is actually starts off his first nursery, right? Because we're just dumb children being ruled over. I try to tell you this. Even in the fucking 1600s, they're writing, we're just children, and our first nursery was Tartary. Now it says Tartary or Tattery, so called from the river Tartar, which runs through the country Mongol. Now, how many motherfuckers gonna tell you, hey, how many times you gonna let people tell you fucking Mongol isn't a nation, it's a land. People are built off the soil. The soil is mingled with their flesh. Mongol soil, Mongol people, Mongol nation. Want to read it? Let somebody come on camera and tell you, Caucasian don't exist. It's a term. Mongoloid don't exist. It's a term. Well, there's Caucasus Mountains, so there is land attributed to that term. There's Mongol nation and soil, so land attributed to that. You guys let this fucker lie to you all the time. Get in it. And see, that's why I don't like the GOCC, man. They always just fucking making up lie. The country Mongol into the Northern Ocean. Now, this written in 1600. Now, 1600 is it's written in 2015, 2014, whenever he made that dumbass video, he want to tell you, this thing don't exist because they came out of the mouth of Freemasons. I don't care if the Freemasons repeated it. Those motherfucking Tartars that live on Mongol soil, that have Mongol blood, took the sword and fought off everybody. It turns out they even fought off us to make it known that that's their motherfucking land and that they're a people group and it's a bloodline. You won't let some dumbass nigga come on camera and tell you, oh, ain't no such thing as Mongols. I remember when everybody took the blowing that guy, man. Tartar out of Tartar River runs through Mongol country into the Northern Sea, covers a great part of the territorial globe. The letter Tartary makes out a considerable part of Europe. Excuse me, the lesser Tartary, the lesser Tartary makes out a considerable part of Europe. The greater is Asia. This great Tartary, which is 1,000 leagues long and 600 broad, reckons 5 chief provinces. The wild Tartary, inhabited by herdsmen, Sangadi, of which the metropolis is Samarkand, whatever, famous for the mighty Tamerlane. Next, Turkestan and Kitari. Whoa, wow, that's like Kittim. See, now this would make sense if they had us in fucking slaved up here. Because these are the children of fucking Ham. The Turks, the Tartars, the Kit, right? The Kittim, The Kitai, the Kitai, Hittai, whether it's one or the other, whether it's the Hittites or the Kittim. Now, I know the Kittim is supposed to be the Latins in Italy, so that that does could be the Hittites, the Kitai, which the great Cham commands. See, I told you, which the great Cham. See, I told you the Hamites. So the Hamites, the King Hamite ruled in Tartar, right? Now, now everybody said, now I'm not even subscribing to this shit. Everybody says Kush was in Hindu India, right? So now does that make sense? Tartar, Asia, India, all right there to be ruled by Ham's children. See? Now, they keep telling you Ham was black. Now I need you to think about this. What if black people went into Ham's country and took over whatever they built in Africa and kicked them out of Africa? Don't Chinese do a DNA test and saying we think everybody come from us? The Chinese do this and then they do the DNA test and find out that they came out of Africa. So that means they're not in the original soil. That means if the Chinese is Mongol and these other motherfucking Mongols is in Asia just like the Chinese, and they all blood related. They all from Africa and they all migrated. Ain't that the story of the Canaanites getting kicked out of Africa? Now, don't these motherfucking Indians on this side of the world look like the Japanese and the Chinese with different wardrobe and longer hair? Wow, lexwill, you were right the whole time. It ain't about being right. It's about us having the truth. And you not coming at me like I fucking stole your kid off the street just because I'm trying to break down what's really written in a book. I can't believe how nasty some people act because I break stuff down. It's all I do. Just break it down. And you guys come here and you say the nastiest shit. Attacking my family. My family's not on camera. Heartless. Heartless things you say. Because I'm trying to help other people who don't have the time to read. Some can't even read. And you guys come here and you systematically attack. Like vicious dogs. Well, let's find out who we are. This great Tartary, which 1,000 leagues, 600 broad, reckoned 5 chief provinces: the wild Tartary, inhabited by herdsmen, Sangati, of which the metropolis was Samarkand, famous for the mighty Tamerlane. Next, Turkestan, then Kitai, which the great Cham, which is Ham from the Bible, it's a great Cham commands, right? That's Cham's name being passed down through the generations, and which later changed to Khan, right? And lastly, Old Tartary, according to Andreas Castoredis, the inhabitation of Gog and Magog. All right, so lastly, we see Gog and Magog brought up, right? So we got the names Tartar, and we have Hamite blood. Now, the names Tartary, whom do that belong to biblically? And we can solve this equation very fast about whom Gog and Magog are, because we already have the location and where the soil of Gog and Magog. Okay, we don't have to guess at who are the people anymore. Now we must inquire from what Tartars the Americas are extracted. Marneus, whatever, man. And these writers and others are of the opinion that the Tartars, which about the year 1228, under the command of Dzingis Cham or Dzingis Cham, right? I can't help it that they done took our history and then brainwashed us all to believe that we're fucking Mizrahim. But when we go to the ancient books, some shit seemed funny. If black people are ancient Mizrahim, if they're the first dynasty, then how come the images of the third dynasty exist? Wouldn't the second dynasty have taken the first dynasty's images down? Say I'm better than them? Wouldn't the third dynasty have taken the images of the second dynasty down and say I'm better than them? What if the first dynasty and the second dynasty couldn't build in that kind of construction, but the third dynasty brought that construction technique to Egypt? See, that's why I'm just gonna have to just cover this just in fewer steps, in smaller steps, not fewer steps, smaller steps, and more steps to be exact. Just real slow across the glass plane, man. Because see, basically, I'm gonna tell you right now, I think that the black Egyptian is not the black Egyptian. I think the quote-unquote black Egyptian is the children of Adam, who are the Sumerians, who at some point came into Mizrahim, Egypt, and overthrew it during the period which they call the Hyksos, when the Israelites were already enslaved by Mizrahim. I think black people that are called Egyptians came over and just... Mizrahim is the children of Cham or Ham. And they ain't brought up no more. It's always Egypt after that. So I think they overthrew. I think these people that are the Sumerians overthrew Mizrahim and then named the place Egypt. That's what I believe at this point right now. And this isn't something that I'm just like, I guess I could go with this. I've been thinking about this for a while, and I'm gonna show you these other dudes' videos that's gonna blow your fucking mind. These black people from the islands, they're not related to us. They're not. And this dude uses the scripture to prove it. They are the Greeks, the black Greeks, and they came over here to live with us, and they took the islands. I'm gonna get into all this. All right, so this states. Now they told you that Tiglath-Pileser III, okay, what he did was he did the people swap, right? He did the what do they call it? Shit, the three-card money, or the shell game. He did the shell game with people. Now, we talked to the guy briefly that was in Georgia, and the guy that was in Georgia, he had the information that Tiglath-Pileser III is actually Dzingis Cham. All right, now we're about to read about it. Now, it says that these historians are under the impression, and others under the opinion, that the Tartars in the year 1218, under the command of Dzingis Cham or Dzingis Cham, overspread the earth like a deluge, and the successors of the 10 tribes, the descendants of the 10 tribes, were carried away into Assyria. Now, here in this book, do you understand what I'm saying? This book correlates with the Bible, but this book doesn't say Tiglath-Pileser III. It says what? Dzingis Cham, okay? Who's really what? Dzingis Cham. Do you see that? What the Bible say? Bible say Tiglath-Pileser. Real world say what? See, they changed the name in the Bible. They made a fictitious name, Tiglath-Pileser. I don't give a fuck if he called himself Pool or whatever. I don't care if it was his drunken nickname. The world don't know him by that. The world know of the siege of Genghis Khan. So for them to write in the Bible, for King James or whoever else to write in Tiglath-Pileser, is to throw you and me off in this day right now, because it's the last days. This is our only fighting chance. And you can fight with me on this channel if you want. But you've got to understand, the brain thinks in a pattern. And I'm the guy that's the pattern breaker. And if you talk to me one way online, and you talk to me the same way in person, I'm going to know the two are the same. Just like when I read this book, and when the patterns match, I can see it. So you keep playing, on that wire. I've encouraged you all to study for yourselves. I've encouraged you to open up your Bibles when I have mine open and read with me. You are your own adult. Just like these adults that come here and leave verbal threats and harassment. You have every right to do whatever you decide. These decisions are yours to make. I just want you to remember one word. One word. Hey, Strong's Concordance. H1961. Hey, you just remember that. All right. So here we have the written evidence that Tiglath-Pileser III is actually the Tartar commander, or the Mongol commander, Dzingis Cham, or how we know him today as Genghis Khan. And he overspread the earth like a deluge, were the successors of the 10 tribes of Israel, which were carried away into captivity to Assyria by Shalmaneser. The name Tartary, or rather Tartaria, seems to be some testimony thereof, because it signifies in the Syrian or Hebrew tongue remnants or remainders, as seemingly because these Tartarians were remainders of the forementioned tribes, nay, the northern Tartary herdsmen preserve to this day the names Dan. They preserve the name Zebulun and Naphtali, wherefore we need not to admire why so many Jews are found in Russia, in Samaria, in Liesland or Leafland. No, that's a F, so it's Leafland. Nay, the nearest to Tartary, the more Jews there are. So, when you sit there and think all these niggas is in America, well, there's a bunch of niggas that are in where? Tartary. Why? Because the actions of Genghis Khan. And you already know they've already expressed that they're not Negro. So technically, it's a game that they play, because it's the name swap, Circumcision hath a long been observed among them, before Muhammad brought his new law, it seems that Muhammad ordered the circumcision and other laws according to Moses to be observed by the northern people. Because that in his time, they began to rebel, that so they might the better be kept in awe by their new religion. Now, you can see right there that he's explaining Muhammad brought what? Islam. And the worship of it started as the worship of Mohammedanism. Don't bullshit yourself. Then this new religion was brought there for what? The fucking slaves. Isn't that the same thing that happened in Rome? Can't you see? It's just repeating itself. Slaves are becoming a problem in Rome. All right, take their religion, dice it up, water it down, call it Christianity. If any of them keep that shit up, kick them out of the fucking city. That's how we got the Essene writings, right? Now, you got the same thing over there in Tartarville, right? You got these seem to be Negroes but not Negroes that are enslaved by the Tartars that didn't get away when the other 10 tribes got away. And what's going on with them? Well, it seems here that they were locked up. And Muhammad had to what? He had to bring new law. He had to do the exact same thing his masters did. Didn't I read the shit to you? They told you the Catholic Church created Muhammad, took his ass and put him in a school and everything. They preach to you to this day. Muhammad was ignorant. He did not know how to read. He was taken into a cave and choked out like a bitch by a demon. Ah! Is that what they fucking tell you? Yeah, well, the Catholics have a different story. The historians that record everything in history have a different story about Muhammad. And they have the exact date that Allah was added to the worship and Muhammad was placed aside. And it was changed from Mohammedanism to the worship of Allah. Come on, man. History is a bitch, ain't it? Yeah, see, that's the problem, you know? And then you got these niggas that sit there and say, I'll worship fucking Islam, right? And then it's no fucking surprise because this shit was specifically designed for them, but the type of them that's on the other side of the world. Christianity is created to control the Israelite that's enslaved by the Roman. Islam is created to control the Israelite that's what? Enslaved by the what? The Tartars. The Mongoloid. This is the reality. This is why those fucking Indians ain't gonna say, oh, these people been here longer. And these people built the pyramids. And we watched them build the pyramids, said, what fuck I'm doing? And this is exactly why. Because their people groups enslaved us. And when we left, we done brought half of them over here. When we got here, half of them was already here. We left in a great multitude. And they was already here. So since we already had some of them, see, that's the problem. We left in a great multitude, and then we come into the land, and we got Mongols with us, and we come into the land, and there's Mongols here. And then we're supposed to kill the Mongols here, but not kill the Mongols that are with us. So somebody just started beating a war drum. And when they start beating the war drum, they did a different beat. And I guess we all just started having sex. And then it created the image that we have today, right? This is what they're fucking writing about. So it seems that Muhammad ordered the circumcision and other laws according to Moses to be observed by the northern people, because that in his time they began to rebel. Now, see, this is what it's all about. stop the rebelling niggas. Whatever we are, whatever you are, whatever I am, all this religion is created to stop us from rebelling while we're enslaved. That's so they might be better kept in awe by their new religion. Johannes, whatever, relates that in Lifeland near Riga, he heard the wild natives called Leti, not without great admiration, go crying along the highways and fields with a dull voice, Jehu, Jehu, Moscow Ion. It is believed that they mourned for Jerusalem and Damascus, but by their long continuance in the vast wildernesses, they have forgot their religion and laws. And what else might enable to tell us who they were? Several learned authors questioned this removal of the Israelites out of Assyria to Tartary, though, to our judgment, their arguments are too weak to take from them, from the footing they have gotten there. Yet, nevertheless, the Israelites are not to be taken for the planters of America, for why else is not Judas mean? As, I don't know what that says, as well found in America as in Tartary. Okay, I think this is a plant. But it is already shown that America was inhabited long before the dispersion of the Israelites. Okay, what he's saying is the Americans can't, the America couldn't have been peopled by the 12 tribes because there was already people there when they were over on the other side of the world being enslaved. And this goes back to page 27, where it says, was Israel peopled by the Israelites or the 10 tribes? And this is the argument why it couldn't be by the 10 tribes, but they look like the 10 tribes, and we have people there that we think are of the 10 tribes, but they couldn't have been there from the start, like the other group that we think is there from the start. Where are we? Because it was already shown America was inhabited long before the dispersion of the Israelites. So the dispersion of the Israelites, he's talking about during the time of Assyrian captivity. I'm sorry, I mean it's really late here. I think you can see down here. I opened the camera big enough so you can see the clock. If you can see it, it's 4 o'clock here. I keep forgetting it's going to reduce that down to a really small screen, so it's probably not gonna 4 a.m. Okay, now to shut all, it is evident that the first planters of America were not Europeans. From the dismultitude of the people, both their complexion, language, and persons. Now listen very close. He's saying it is evident. The word evident has the word evidence. There is enough evidence to say they're not people by the Europeans. Now, he continues to say, nor Africans. Now, this is directly contrary to this title that's been placed on us today, this African American title. I'll read this again. Now, to shut all right, you know what that means, right? To shut everybody the fuck up. It is evident that the first planters of America were not Europeans. From the dismultitude of people, that means Kevin Costner's I don't give a shit who the real director is. 500 Nations, right? The Multitude. We're not all together like Mesoamerica like they think. We're all scattered off in our own little sections and shit. From the multitude of the people, both in their complexions, language, and persons, nor Africans, because that in all the far-spreading countries of America, not one Negro is to be found. Now, you see what he says right there? Now, in this statement, he says Negroes are Africans. Now, I know this is confusing, but you've got to understand there are very few African people that have wool or afro hair. Now, I'm under the impression that there's been a lot of people switching. Now, the people that have R1B and R1A, this means that they're Arab looking and that they're Caucasus looking. They're out of Africa. Their blood says that. The people that are Chinese are out of Africa. Their blood says that. So nothing that comes out of their goddamn mouth is going to change that. I don't have to be the tester. I don't have to have the DNA company. They already fucked up when they let that shit out of the bag. That they're from Africa. Then they fucked up when they showed that we were from Asia and that we were enslaved in Asia. Now, what does that say? That say the dark-skinned people was born somewhere else and placed into Africa, and all the people whose blood say that they from Africa doesn't come out of Africa and live in Asia and Europe. That's the reality of it. Now, I don't care what each of these books say. The reality says something different. White man out of Africa, Japanese man, Chinese man out of Africa, Mongol out of motherfucking Africa. All them done migrated. All these black people in Africa, want to know the funny thing? If they've been there thousands of years, why are they still in separate tribes? Why haven't they formed these unions like these Europeans and shit? Like these Asians have. Now to shut them up, it is evident that the first planters of America were not Europeans, and from the multitude of the people, the 500 nations, both in their complexions, language, and persons, nor the Africans, because that in all the far-spreading countries of America, not one Negro is to be found except a few near the river Martha, in the little territory Quajar, or I don't know what the fuck that is, which must by storm be drove thither from the Guinea coast, Guinea as in Guinea, so that Asia, the mother of all people. Now, again, this is a Caucasian person writing in, I believe, 1600s. He's expressing that Asia is the mother of all people. Now, how do we have a few hundred years later in America, you have people that have never been outside of America saying Africa is the motherland of everything? Now, when this white man, whose DNA is probably R1B, who's probably out of Africa, says Asia is the motherland of everybody, you see the confusion that's going on there? You see, if I built the Tower of Babel people around me at the time would have wrote about it. And somebody in that writer's family probably would have carried those writings along the way. And throughout history, people would have either rewrote it for the new language as it came about, or somebody would have translated it into a language. So all throughout history, we always would have known about the Tower of Babel. If in history Asia's been the motherland and everybody knew it until they give us dumb motherfuckers a bunch of dumber information to keep us dumb as fuck. So now we think we're African, they know we're not. We think we're out of Africa, they know we're not. We think Africa's the motherland, they know it's not. They've been filling our head with shit on purpose. So we fucking argue. If one of us learns the truth, it's no good until he teaches everybody else the truth. Because everybody else is still on this level while the real deal is here. And you can't have because everybody's still going to tell the earth is round. We're Africans. We were brought here on ships. Who knows who built anything here? We built the things here. We were born here. They took over our fucking land and they're constantly stealing our minerals. Now, which one's reality? The left hand or the right? See, this is the whole thing. If I give you a dictionary and it's the 4th edition, in the 4th edition don't match a fucking thing in the 1st edition, then I made a dictionary specifically for your dumbass to use. And me and everybody else in the rest of the world is going to use the 1st edition, and everybody that's in dumb country America is going to use the 4th edition. Now, when you guys in America talk, you guys will all understand what you're saying. But when everybody in the rest of the world listens to you, we're not going to know what the fuck you're saying, because you're going to be using words the wrong way based on what the whole world knows. And this is what they did to us. This is what they did to us. Not only that, they took the world by storm, by the sword, saying, accept Christ or die. And they turned the children of God into people that sit there and preach something other than God now. Now, instead of the creator, we say, "Ooh, son of the creator. Son of the creator is better than the creator. He's the new version, the 2.0. So when they come to the slaves and bring a new religion to keep them in line, the new, the son or the old? The old creator that made us all and gave us air, or the new thing that's going to let you do anything you want?" And this is what they get. This is what they got us with. When we in Rome, here's Christianity. It's a watered down version of the shit you already knew. When you over there in the Tatar country where it was obviously harder, they say, accept Allah or die. Some of your laws are the same. We'll still keep circumcision. We'll still cut into your dick and you'll sit there for 2 weeks and it's sore as fuck. You know? No offense to circumcision, I'm just saying these are the laws that they chose to keep. It's not like they chose to keep like statutes that, you just have to just mentally not do. No, they chose the laws where they get to cut into you. So they say so that Asia, the mother of all people, only remains to be implanter of our America, whose west coast, opposite of Asia, is more inhabited than to the east, where it respects Europe. Now, isn't that something? Now, in the time of Columbus, you don't hear shit about the West Coast. You don't hear anything at all about the West Coast. all you hear is about the East Coast and some things that happened in Florida. But what this author is saying is the West Coast is more populated than the East Coast, where the 13 colonies found favor. You understand what that means? That means something drove us all from the West to the East. That's what that means. I bet it was disease. New disease hits the land. Moreover, Armenia, out of which by Noah's prodigy the whole earth was repeopled, borders on Scythia. Now we have another biblical name that we've heard before, now called Tartary. Oh, okay. So when in history, Chinese built a wall to keep out the Scythians. So when the Sinites built a wall to keep out the Scythians, it was really the Chinese building the Great Chinese Wall to keep out the Tartary or the Mongol people. Now, I don't understand. I overstand. I understand in modern history and in biblical talk. Now, Scythia, now called, hey, I told you, man, when I first started this, I told you is to get the biblical names of all the modern people so we can know who's fucking us over. Now, the borders of Scythia, now called Tartary, and Tartary faces America, separated only by the Straits of Anin. Really? That's crazy. Though some are of the opinion that out of the south into the frozen sea there's no passage through these straits. Else, as we already proved the contrary, they've already proved that there is. How came all those Vascarises and poisonous beasts into America? Vascaris. Oh, ferocious, ferocious and poisonous. Poisonous beast into America, if it clearly separated from Asia by sea. So, if Asia had all these animals, and beasts are things with 4 legs, okay? So if Asia had all these things, how did they get to America if it's only separated by sea? Now we all know, excuse me, it's not really fair for me to say we all know. It's just a slang. Yeah. Most of us have understood when we're taught about the Bering Strait crossing that animals and humans came over. When we look in the Bible, I think it's in Jeremiah, it talks about the highway will be opened again. I also did a Bigfoot. It's called Mystery 411 or Disappearance 411, where they talk where the author talks about scientists have proven with sonar that there is a underwater land bridge. When the water goes down, the land bridge is usable. They can see that with their satellites. On top of that, they have the remains of one of these things that walk upright. What are they? They got like a few skulls and shit like that show the pattern that shows that they were in Siberia and that they crossed over this land bridge, and that because they got dead bodies from Siberia and they got dead bodies from Canada, it shows that these Neanderthals or whatever the fuck they are, crossed over. Now, again, these are still the same things that mated with humans, or some tribes of humans. So this isn't something wild or crazy that I'm bringing up. In fact, there isn't anything that I've talked about today that's really wild or crazy, except for the idea that fucking Egypt isn't really what we think it is. Again, I gotta bring up the name. When does the fucking name Egypt start getting used? Mizrahim is given to us to use, and then all of a sudden it's called Egypt. So all right. It differs. Here to be related. What happened to Henry Cornelsen Scape and William Blyville sailing from Betiva to discover the Tartric River and Palisang, Tartric River, Palisang, whatever, but were taken and carried prisoners to the Japan court of Sedu, or is that a J or a Y? Yedu. I can't tell if that's an I or I don't think that's an F. I think that's a J, Jedu, because this is Japan, right? See how Japan looks like an F? So I think that's Jedu. J is being used at this point in history. Remember, 1524, it's kicked off, and this book's written in the 1600s. Being commanded there by order of the council to give an account of a Japan map or card, which was laid before them, and contained the provinces of Japan, Cambodia. See, that should be Cambodia. The letter C isn't used by them yet. See, it says Cambodia, and Maluka Islands, Namila and South Sea, Borneo, Celebes, Malacca, Tartary, Formosa, Corina, and vast mountainous country, or Despart, I'm just playing, Despart to Jo, separate from Japan by the Straits of Sungar. Now, see, that's still fucking stupid. Why do they use S's there, but use the defunct S here? Whatever. Toward the north, it joins to Japan in the province of Ochio. And the beginning in 47 degrees run eastward towards America, but they could not find the Straits of Anian, but on the contrary, the promontory of Tartary, viz. the province Katea, or Qatari, lay in the same parallel with North America. Alright, so basically, what he's saying, because they're in the same parallel, they're going to have trade rivers that run, trade currents that run through the ocean. Basically, it's a river that runs through the ocean, a current. And since they're across each other on the same ley lines, he thinks that, if you just put a boat in the ocean, you get over there in no time. Here too may be added that Asia hath no territory anywhere which may more easily with numerous colonies supply America than the part of Tartary, as well as the vastness of the country, to which no other can compare. Alright, I think that was it. I think right here was it when we reached Scathia. Now I'm just fucking reading and it's getting out of control. So, think about all the things that we learned today. that the Scythians in the Bible are actually the Mongols. So anybody that's wondered, where are the Mongols in the Bible? They're actually mentioned in Genesis 10 when they talk about Ham, whose real name is Cham. Stop letting these people lie to you. Cham produced Mongols. So where did these Egyptians come from? Now, I know 3 weeks ago, a month ago, 2 months ago, I can't tell you what date it was. I know I'm sitting there saying, out of these forefathers, these different, each of these different colors came. I know I'm saying yellow came out of each different forefather, brown came out of each different forefather, black came out of each different forefather. Yeah. Here's the problem. I need to prove it too. Me, just like anybody else, can say anything they want, but we've got to prove it. And we've got to prove it consistently. I can consistently show you all kinds of literature that says we're Asian, not African. But do we respect that? When we go to the streets and we start talking to everybody, they say, nigga, this, that. Whoa, do we stop them? We say, hey, man, I'm an Asian. They laugh at you. You say, nigga, I'm Afro-Asian. You got a phone? Bring up their search engine. You show them to their face. Do you do that? No, we do not do that. We do not do that on a mass scale. I sell t-shirts to show we are Afro-Asians. We can use this t-shirt. We prove it biblically with this t-shirt using the Bible. We don't have to carry the Bible. We got a shirt right there on you. Just read. Do we do that? No. No, we don't. It turns into a personal souvenir where we wear when we get off work and we're sitting there drinking beer, spilling chips on it. I'm just saying, this is what we do. There is shame in us feeling that we can reclaim our name. How many different authors on YouTube sit there and push African Americans ain't African? How many of them make shirts? How many go in public and hold signs? How many write to municipalities and say, I want to protest? Who are you protesting? I'm protesting the public and my oppressor. And go out there and hold signs. How many people go in front of the churches and say anything? You're Hebrews. You're Egyptians. Anything. You're not supposed to be worshiping Christ. What's the first? How many people write on cardboards? Hold it up. Uphold the first commandment. It has nothing to do with Jesus. How many people do that? We're not willing to put ourselves on the line because of embarrassment, because of our own personal shame. And what are we ashamed of? Are we really ashamed of the Creator? Are we really afraid of the looks that we're going to get from somebody else? Because what? These people proclaim Jesus all day long. You hear black women, oh Lord Jesus. Jesus put you in this predicament. Somebody sneezes, that same person will say, oh, God bless you. Who is God? Oh, I don't know, but I tell you, Jesus. Oh, that's the attitude of them. So you tell me, you got breath, and you got a heartbeat, and you got a desire for heaven. You got those three things. Like right now, you got the world. So you got something dead people don't have. Breath and a heartbeat. You still have tomorrow to change. You can grab a book. You can do a lot of things. You can just talk to people. Your own family. Who better off to try to save for heaven than your own family members? You don't have to get kicked out. You don't have to get in an argument. You don't have to get into a fight. You don't have to get in a wrestling match with your mom and dad. You just have to talk. If they're not receptive, say, that's fine. I'm your own flesh and blood, and we can't have a discussion about our souls. That's what you're telling me, right? That's what you're telling me. You can use your charm, your wit, your personality on the people you know. You can take these printouts. How hard is it to say, read this, read Dumb Diverses 1452? How hard is it to say, hey, preacher, will you read this today? How hard is it to actually step forward to make that attempt in the people who's around you? How hard is it? We're not talking about putting 5 minutes aside, write a letter. We're not talking about putting half an hour aside for some jogging in the shower afterwards. We're not talking about some time aside for your kid that you never get to go see. Here's the biggest secret in the fucking world. This is selfish. You understand that? This is selfish. Fuck your business. Fuck everything else. This is about your soul. About my soul. It's about your soul. I've sinned. I want sin erased. The more I preach, the more sin's erased. Isn't that what it says? The more I give alms to poor, I'm poor myself. The more I give alms to poor, the more I help, the more trouble I caused, that's erased. That's what's written. It's up to us about what we're going to give back. This isn't about paying it forward. You've been enslaved. You don't have a fucking nickel. Not for your oppressor. But you are their key to salvation. We're not their salvation. We are their key to salvation. Now, the wicked people, they know it. And the more confused you are, the more confused I am, the more successful they are. Because the system goes another day. Now, whether you're with the Creator or not, this stuff is going to end. He says, be in this place or be in that place. And you say, oh, I'm waiting on you. You're not waiting where he wants you to. You grab your cell phone. You open up to your contacts and you go to your third contact, no matter who it is. You say, pick me up in 15 minutes, 3 blocks over, and then hang up the phone. Now, 3 blocks over could mean anywhere. Could mean 3 blocks that way, 3 blocks that way, 3 blocks that way. Do you think that they will find you? If this entity that you worship says, place your ass where your old kingdom was, and you say, no, I'm good right here, come get me, we'll see if he has the will to find you when he already told you where to find him. Bye.